Good morning, everyone. I'll call our audit and control meeting to order, 9 o'clock.
Keep going.
Today we have to work through and find some. Has everyone received a list of the proposed amendments to the budget? And that's in front of everyone. And everyone has had an opportunity to see some of the proposed changes and amendments or ideas. So I guess I'll just open it up for discussion.
Or let those guys
If
go over
you,
them.
if you have
You want us
anything
to
that you
just,
want to.
just review where we're at?
Yep, sure. So go down what we've
be a good idea.
changed and what the amendments are and where we stand as a,
I would maybe, yes,
As a group.
these amendments that we've already identified, and then we can go to the other one.
This is excellent, by the way. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Plus, I can see it because I'm in the front row.
Well, if I need to zoom it more so people can get a better look at it, I can do that too. So these are the amendments that I had sent to you last night. I just plugged in the .8 amounts for the A, D, and DM funds. I just split it out in the 3 amounts. So that's included on there. As mentioned in my email, this includes everything that has already been voted on, plus the 2 that still need to be officially approved by the legislature. The first being these .8s to amend for the actual retirement accounts. And lastly, this right here, the 13,603 to bring that MAT subdepartment to a net zero. So those 2 still need to be voted on, but everything else is plugged in here.
So then the net amount we need to,
I'm sorry.
that net amount that we need to amend, or look for offsets is the
Yes.
1.9 million.
Yep, the 1.923 million is what we need to find offsets for. That's the overall
That's the
increase.
increase?
Yes,
Oh,
yep,
boy.
yep, that's the overall increase in appropriations based on the amendments that have been proposed.
thank you. So at this point in time, after going through the budget and finding pluses and minuses, we have amendments that have put the budget at $1,924,192 above the proposed budget from the county executive. So I think in looking at some of our amendments, I'd like to start with the discussion on the 2 safety net and mental hygiene law, if we will. I think those might be some topics that are fairly easy in discussion, maybe. But I'll open it up to anybody that would want to make any comments on those or have any ideas. If we choose to keep those at the levels at which they were amended, or we could adjust those amounts.
Kitty, you had something?
So we did hear from Paul Myers, a fiscal supervisor for mental hygiene, since their hearing on Monday, and because they were taking another look at the mental hygiene law costs, and it looks now, based on some very recent updates, that they are trending lower than what they were projecting when they were here earlier. So I think there's a comfort level in maybe making the reduction that is recommended.
And that's for the mental health law?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mental health law.
And in that whole amount of the 250. That is recommended.
Yeah, so, the original amendment made by the Human Services Committee was to increase by 500,000, and, you know, in this scenario of amendments to make up that, 1.9 million,
You think we can decrease by 250?
I think it's reasonable, and I'm sure that they, before your committee meetings, I mean, if you make this amendment, to reduce that increase down, I'm sure they can provide some further updates, before your committee meetings this month.
Okay.
To,
They feel comfortable with the, if we amend it lower than,
To 250 instead of 500?
Yes.
trending low, okay.
Yeah, what about safety net?
So I'm just trying to find this,
So basically, the information that Paul provided, he basically said that he went back and reviewed their hospitalization bills for June, July, and August, and there were discharges that he did not know about. He has also spoken to Carmelo after seeing those revised numbers, and Carmelo is not aware of any new commitments coming down the pike, so they are estimating that to perform lower than they had originally anticipated based on that.
As far as the number of people.
Correct.
Dan, while you're looking for your stuff.
I found it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, well,
So I just wanted to just make a point that last year's budget was 250,000. And throughout this year, we have projected it to come in at 850,000. So it's an amendment of 600,000. And as my understanding is we need to further amend that this year? Or is there enough funds to cover this year, you think, as well?
No, they do need to amend the budget for this year because
Okay.
the budget was 250. They've definitely already exceeded 250,000.
Yep.
But I don't think that they're currently projecting anywhere near the $1 million that they had previously
Okay.
expected for this year.
So their projection of around 850,000 is accurate? Okay.
I would say so, yeah.
or
For this-
possibly,
for this
possibly
year.
high, or,
Or, yeah, I mean,
Possibly high.
yeah, possibly high, I guess, depending on how things play out between now and the end of the year, but, yeah.
it could be closer to 750.
Could be.
possibly.
We could get more specifics from the department, I mean, but they're, Yeah.
You could, Kitty, but just in general, okay. 850 tops, possibly 750.
I'm not going to commit
Yeah.
to an estimate,
No,
but
I know,
I'll,
I know.
I
That's
will,
okay.
I will say that I think it's not out of reason to reduce the proposed increase for next year by $500,000 down to an increase of 250, so that their budget would be for next year 750,000.
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just the law.
All right.
I'm in favor of reducing that. Are you in
I'm okay
favor?
with that.
Me too.
Yeah. No, and that certainly is last year, we knew 250 was light, and we should have corrected it then. I'm happy that we are adding to it this year, and it's our best guess with the numbers that we have currently. So I'm happy with that adjustment, so.
Okay.
And it's above what their tentative budget reads. They are saying their tentative budget for 2024 is 500, and we're above that with new information, so I'm happy.
Dan, I had a question on safety net.
Do we want to make the amendment for mental health, or you want
One at a time, or all of them
to?
together?
It's up to you.
If you'd like to do all of them together, once you decide how you'd like to do everything, I don't
Is that
see-
easier for you guys?
It doesn't matter.
Whatever works for all of you is completely fine with us. If it's easier for you to do it all in one, that's great. If you'd like to do them individually, you can do that too.
Well, the one at a time is a good running tally, and we know what
Yes.
we've already done.
Yeah.
That's all.
Absolutely.
If we could even, maybe we don't necessarily have to make the amendment as of right now, but we could have some sort of a consensus that we do know that we are in agreeance right now to make that 750.
Yes.
So, and that's a savings of the 250 right now.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the adjustment to the amendment, cutting it in half, is appropriate because of the information we've received from the department. But also, I have a lot of confidence in Carmelo and his staff that they're going to be focusing more on this and working with the courts to try and find local alternatives that would reduce this expense. So for both those reasons, I think that the reduction in the amendment as proposed is appropriate.
I agree with you with the reduction. I don't agree with you on they're gonna be working, because we heard that last year and it didn't work. So that's why, and I had a question on it.
Well,
So,
Tim, the only difference is this year, the legislature is watching. So
We were last year.
Maybe that'll help too.
we were last year.
Dan, I was gonna say, like Terry just said, maybe this is some incentive to work, or keep a little closer tabs on it. Not that they weren't, I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
the awareness factor is much greater now than it was.
To the legislature.
Yes, yes.
I would hope that the Human Services Committee will look for regular updates on this as the year progresses.
And in their defense, in Carmelo's defense, he's not here. It does come down to the judge's decision, and it's their, no matter what you do or say or how they work, if the judge deems that necessary, that's where it goes, so.
Yep.
It's the judge's decision, so.
Well, maybe people from the legislature could talk to the judges too, along with Carmelo. Or the county executive.
Just to, make sure they're doing everything necessary.
Exactly. So,
So I think we can tally the 250 off.
Great.
We'll make an amendment to follow.
Okay.
Safety net, Terry.
yeah, okay, so Jen and Kitty, the amendment in the other day in social services was to increase that by, well, let's see, in the committee, let's see, what was it?
I believe it
What
was
committee was that? Was that
Human
Human
Services.
Services?
Yes.
Okay. The amendment was to increase that by 750,000, and so we think we can reduce that possibly by 250,000. So the
Well,
increase would be 500 for them?
There's two entries. There's the increase in expense and then the increase in revenue, which the net effect was an increase in local share of $500,000. So we just put on this tally, that was to reflect a net local share decrease to
Oh, okay.
bring down from 500 to 250. So we would have
Okay.
to,
That doesn't take
reduce-
into the account the 29% decrease in revenue?
no,
Correct.
it's net of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. it's a
Net of that.
So when you're gonna make an amendment, you're gonna reflect the total increase you want in expense and the total increase you want in revenue, so that the
Or-
net effect.
Or in this case, decrease in revenue,
de-
correct?
No, well, you're decreasing the amendment.
Okay.
You-
I know
we
what
can-
you're saying,
We can do
Kate.
the entries for you on
Okay.
here, but if your committee wants to make an amendment so that the net local share increase for safety net is 250,000 versus the $500,000 net local share increase that the Human Services Committee proposed.
You'll make an adjustment as far as
We'll do the two
the revenue.
accounts on the pre-filed resolution for you,
Okay.
We're decreasing the increase.
correct.
Right.
So
Decreasing the local share increase.
Right.
Any new information that was provided at this, no better news with this one?
Nope,
Mr. Chairman, I have
not so much.
grave concerns about safety net. Currently, they're estimating, or they're projecting the 2023 expense to be $7.5 million. Their tentative budget was $6 million. So in committee, they added $750,000 to that which would still be $750,000 below the projection for 2023. And now we're suggesting cutting that, reducing that 750 proposed increase in expense. I think that this is dangerous.
Other comments?
Yeah, Pierre, we had the, I think all of us had the same concerns last year with drug treatment program as far as the sheriff's department. But hasn't that come in a lot less than, I mean, some of the forecasts that we had were huge increases, $2 or $3 million, I think. And that has come in a lot less than what it was. I mean, yes, they did, they raised that question, but, I'm wondering if maybe that's just a kind of an outlier. That's the most it could be, but I'm thinking that optimistically, it'll be a lot less than that.
In
It's
response,
similar to the drug treatment program for the jail.
in response to that,
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
the data wasn't there for the MAT program at the time. The data is here for the safety net, past trends, and that's where the information is past trends, and that's
Okay.
backed up by data. Where or the MAT program last year, there was no data,
It's brand new.
brand new.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so that's the difference, Terry, and I want to make that point.
So maybe that's a question mark for now. On making a change to safety net.
Any other comments?
Could we look at the, 6 months from now, and maybe even the budget if we have to at that point for the safety net, or is it, we have to
But
wait?
then you don't have the opportunity to collect the tax revenue for it.
Oh, okay, that's right.
So at that point, you're going into fund balance. And now that I've put that little gift into the punch bowl, I have a better word for it, but I'm not gonna do that in public. I also, after sitting through all of the committee meetings, I believe that we have opportunities for some increased revenue that has not been identified yet, at least in the analysis that we've seen. When we spoke to emergency services about their new ambulance, transport ambulance, everyone agreed that their start has been very, very successful, and their budget of revenue is very conservative. They've been budgeting a little bit, their budget is a little bit more than one transport per day. And as they have launched the program, given it's only been 17 days, they've been between 2 and 3 transports per day. I don't know that is gonna, I wouldn't be as bold as to say we should budget for 3 transports a day, but the transport is available to the hospitals 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. A transport takes a couple of hours. I think it would be reasonable to increase their revenue to reflect 2 transports per day. 2 transports per day would add $350,000 to their revenue line with no increase in expenses. I'm sorry, that's reflective of their increase of expenses for fuel. Yep. Yep.
I know Noel did mention that just the transports are only from Westfield right now, from WCA. I know Brooks is interested and wants him to start immediately, so
Yes.
that's going to increase, as you said.
Yes, exactly. Westfield is saying we can give you 2 to 3 transports a day, and Dunkirk is asking for them to provide transports for them.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I was asking him the questions. And you heard me ask him if he was comfortable in increasing it, and he said, what he should say is, I don't know, and I don't want to raise it because I don't want to come in under. But I thought that there was room there, so.
Well, I just think from past budgets, he's being super conservative because he doesn't want an
Certainly.
egg on his face, I think is what the reason.
I respect them for being conservative with a new program.
Yep.
But the situation that this budget is in, I think that we have to look for opportunities to put this budget back in line, and I think this is an opportunity.
A question I do, why are they so slow this year? They've only reported 225,000 in revenue this year,
For ambulance transports,
all revenue.
part of that is the delay in getting the charges out to the local fire departments.
Sure.
But that's the fly car, that's not the
I
ambulance
get it.
transport program.
But even, our ambulance program may have ability to help compensate the overages that we've overestimated on the fly car. And that's where I'm leery too.
Well, if you recall, we adjusted the fly car revenue down substantially in the 2023 budget. They're not projecting that to increase next year.
We don't know where they're coming in at this
We
year.
don't know where it's gonna land.
No.
This is the reason that last year in the budget, I argued to separate the transport from the fly car in the budget, and I was unsuccessful in my argument, but this is the reason.
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to, for clarification on the expenditures related to, like, did they say that their budget was, for expenditures, was based on one transport per day, or that if there was more than one, the expenses wouldn't change?
The revenue calculation is based upon the cost per transport, or the receipt. The net per transport. So it's the revenue that's projected to be received from the 3 different insurance programs, less the cost of the incremental cost of the transport. The labor is fixed, 10 hours a day, 2 people. But it's the fuel cost that
I
is
see.
variable.
Okay. Yeah.
While I'm on a roll, before you come to a decision on that opportunity, I also feel that we have an opportunity with the carts revenue. As we talked, their carts is seeing a significant increase in ridership and a significant increase in revenue. Will that continue? I don't know. That could easily be, if it continues at the level it's at, it could be another $250,000 in revenue next year. I don't necessarily believe that that's a realistic projection.
Pierre, no, some of that was because, wasn't there a carrier that went out of business and carts picked up extra riders?
Yes.
Okay, did they say that there may be other carriers coming into the field?
Possible, for sure.
Okay.
She indicated that she's seen some vans running around, but she
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
know
okay.
what that's all
All
about.
right. Well, I too think there's an opportunity for more revenue through carts. I'm just not sure how much.
Yeah. I would not be as bold to say that we should go for the 250, but I think some of that,
Half of that, you believe? Would that be a?
125 or 150?
yeah, yeah.
I could even go 150.
So which amount? 125 or 150?
140.
125 is what I.
125?
Yeah, I would say half of the 250, I guess. 112.
Okay.
540.
Any other revenue finds here? I have
That's all I came up with.
Does anyone recall anything from the clerk's office? It seemed like the clerk was being a little conservative on some of his new income. Was there, does anything recall, do you recall on that?
No, I don't recall conservatism there.
Okay.
What do you think? 50,000?
Don't know. But I don't,
125.
Oh,
So-
Calm down.
So on the revenue side,
Got
I did wanna pose one more question. What would,
oh yeah. I'm sorry.
what would, assuming a 6% vacancy savings due versus a 5 for employee vacancies.
I can.
Roughly.
Pull up, I don't have, I'll pull up my model and calculate it, but that would be an amendment that I'd be more concerned with. It'll take me a minute to,
We're trending at 10% now, correct?
I'm just curious, I mean, if anyone else is completely objective to that
well, let's see,
thought, but-
3.7 was,
It's been,
The number is, yeah.
yes, yeah, it's been an average of 10%, so roughly
Running 10 and
vacancies.
using 5.
Use five as a model to move it to 6.
We're
it's
using,
about 740,000 probably.
okay, so I don't know if you heard that. Kitty said it would be about another 740,000. But, I mean, a gentle reminder that, you know, a big part of where the 5 came from is the fact that we're not decreasing any corresponding revenues based on those assumed vacant positions.
Pierre, what's your
So
tally?
we consider that 5% kind of the bogey between the 10% on the .1 side and then anything that we're not accounting for on the revenue
Because a
side.
lot of those positions are in social services where you have 50, 75% reimbursement.
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
What I was concerned
some
with
cases,
when I was
yes.
asking
Yeah.
the vacancy, and I didn't tally it all up, but there's significant swings between departments. Sure. I mean, some departments are currently at 15% vacancy. A lot of them are at 0.
Or two or three.
Yeah, so there's a large swing between departments, which means that essentially every department's .1 budget could wind up need to be adjusted next year.
Certain.
Because we've just taken a
Most likely
blanket
will.
savings rather than blow it through each department's budget, which would have taken a long time. But overall, I think that the largest vacancies we're seeing currently are in the departments that get a significant amount of reimbursement
Reimbursement for
for
those
the
positions.
vacancies. So
Social
to
services
Jen's
help.
point, you can't look at 5% and say, oh, but they're running at 10%, because the vacancies are gonna result in a reduction in aid for those positions.
Correct.
And the other point that I would make is that at some point, we want to have the positions filled, and we want to be closer to what a normal vacancy or turnover savings would be, which I would say maybe is more like a 3%, 2 or 3% would be kind of normal. So I anticipate, you know, as recruitment efforts improve and positions do start to get filled and kind of we get back to normal, like right now, we're not normal. It's not a normal situation, but at some point,
Understood.
so by 2025, we don't want to have to be, you know, too far behind in terms of, you know, I would anticipate in 2025, we're not going to budget for the same level of vacancy savings as we are for 2024.
Understood,
So-
but, you know, looking at it this year, you know, what we are comfortable with, and even if 5.5 is, you cut the 740 in half, you're at,
Dan?
375.
Yeah.
My observation from the week was everyone's intending to fill these positions.
Sure.
And many of them were going to be filled by the end of the month. I think it was the sheriff was the only one that said he had some positions that he wasn't going to actively pursue to fill. I think we gotta be careful here, because we also don't wanna send the message that we don't want them to fill the positions.
Exactly.
These jobs are there to be filled, to do the work, to get it done, to lighten the load, to, you know. I'm just a little wary of dipping into that, so. I mean, if they fill 25 positions by the end of this month, that just,
you know, and through committee.
I understand what you're saying, I just,
Yeah, and through committee,
you know.
I made note of that, is that, you know, we want you to fill the positions.
Yeah, and then factor in the ones that are being subsidized or paid for that aren't full, local share benefit of not filling. I don't know, I'm a little leery on
Kitty, remind us of the impact of the new contract on retirements. I think we heard a couple of departments mention that they had expected more retirements this year that they're not seeing now because of the new contract.
Yeah, so, over the last probably year and a half, I think, well, starting with the pandemic years, we had definitely seen an uptick in retirements that we weren't expecting. A few years back, we had a trend going up and it kind of eventually plateaued, and then we saw a trend back up again in retirements.
In COVID.
Yeah, since COVID, and, even just this last year, I mean, even payroll will comment to me, like, how many terminations, how many retirements they are seeing every payroll. Not like there's a mass exodus, but one of the provisions that was negotiated into the contract was, I think we built it into the third year of the contract, there'd be a enhancement to their health insurance benefit. So that kind of puts that carrot out there. If you wait another 2 years, like if you were considering retiring this year and next year, if you kind of stay on another year beyond that, you're going to have a little bit better health insurance benefit if you retire then. And that provision expires with the contract. So we intentionally kind of put it out in a later year in the contract to help us with retention, because while turnover is healthy and you want that too, but we were seeing too many people leaving with too much historical knowledge, and we just weren't able to keep up with the backfills either. So yeah, so we wanted to slow that down a little bit, and so we have heard just word of mouth that people are, oh, I was going to retire next year, but I better stay another year.
That's a good thing.
So,
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, so, guys, that, if you projected a 6% vacancy, the savings would be.
Would be roughly another 740,000.
Less
Approximately.
the revenue reimbursement, which varies from department to department.
Correct.
Well, would we be comfortable, instead of 750,000, maybe doing 350,000 as far as the vacancies? Bob, you're
That's why I
not, though,
brought it
right?
up.
Well, Scudder had a great point. I mean, there's like 25 that can be filled tomorrow, and then we're gonna be in a situation if we do that, so.
We could, Tom, but part of the problem is part of it is finding the people in qualifications too, as some of these department heads mentioned. It's not like there's a pool out there that you can hire from.
Right.
The pool is quite small, so that's why we have more vacancies now than we used to.
But also consider this. I mean, I'm not saying I'm totally against it. We also have 3 months in 2023
Yeah.
that those positions can be filled, and they have no impact on 2024. If they're filled before the first of the year, it's not a vacancy we can count on for 2024. We're reaping the benefit of it, if I can, I don't know, maybe that's not the term,
This year.
for this year, but anything that gets hired in the next 90 days, we don't see any benefit budget-wise to that vacancy. And who knows, I'm hoping, I'm not saying we can't use some, but I think we gotta be really conservative in what we're talking on that number. And I also don't wanna send a message out to not hire.
I don't think we're doing that by doing what we're doing. It's just
No.
fiscal responsibility. Kitty, what do you have?
well, my opinion, for whatever it counts, I'd be far more comfortable increasing the transport revenue than than putting more vacancy savings into the budget.
I would agree with that at this time where we are in our discussion.
Or what about doing both? A little of both.
Well, I guess it's what your overall objective is here. Is your overall objective just to balance out the 1.9 million? Is the objective to reduce the amount of fund balance we're using in the budget? Lower the tax levy increase?
All of those, but I think
Well,
to close the gap on the 1.9.
Exactly, to come as close as we can to zeroing out the 1.9 million, if we can.
Uh-huh.
If we can.
By-
Maybe-
by finding-
Maybe we can't, but,
Yeah.
but I'd like to see us offset that.
So if the transport, with the carts revenue and with the transport revenue of an increase of 350, and if the other items on the chart there, if you were to use that, then you'd be off by about $400,000, which, you know, if you appropriated $400,000 of fund balance and you're not using it toward the lake, but you're just using it towards operations, you would be balanced.
Then we're done.
Well, Kitty, how much did you say for the transport?
That's what I said.
You said 350,
350,
yeah.
yes. I thought, I misheard you. Thank you.
I'm not opposed to using some of the fund balance, if that's gonna be the safest route.
So we could talk about some more of the things that you have on your list here as we're kind of running through. We've come up with a few different ideas, and we can keep them in our mind, but
What did she indicate for safety net?
That's assuming no change for the safety net.
Okay? Yep.
So Jennifer, I don't know if you want to just kind of scroll down, and just so I can explain a little bit about the bottom section there, so.
This doesn't have the 200 on it either.
Yeah. So the tentative budget column there just shows you of the uses of fund balance in the tentative budget. And then, in the middle column there would be, you know, if you decided to reduce the funding toward the lake by 500 and not use fund balance for that, but use fund balance to make up the net adjustments that we're trying to do today, in the original scenario, that was 624,000. And then also, there was an idea brought up yesterday is to fund the heavy equipment purchases with serial bonds. That would reduce the amount of fund balance being used for capital projects. So, you know, you would be reducing the use of fund balance, you know, by about, you know, a little over $1 million. That still keeps us well within our, you know, projected range of 5 to 15% fund balance. So while changing the you know, borrowing for the heavy equipment doesn't impact the levy, it impacts the use of fund balance in the budget. Additionally, it's not on here, but there is, if you wanted to further reduce the use of fund balance, there is another $200,000 in the reserve for capital. If there's a, you know, we could add that to, you know, funding the capital projects, and that would reduce the use of fund balance by another $200,000.
the current $1 million for the lake in the budget, where's that revenue coming from for that program?
Fund balance.
All fund balance?
Yeah.
1 million fund
Yes.
balance?
Yeah, so,
It's all fund balance.
And so that, okay, so that would be a decision every year if we include that extra in there in this aspect, because it's not funded by something every year, it's fund balance.
correct, so, yeah.
If the lake was reduced by,
And the,
by 500,000, I know Jamie had a great question. What happened in the past when they had an emergency with the lake? They'd always tap into 2% occupancy, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what the emergency was and how the legislature at any time wanted to fund it. They could use occupancy tax reserves. You can use fund balance. If it's a capital project item, you could use reserve for capital. It just would have depended on conditions at the time or what
Okay.
the will of the legislature was in the past.
How did we fund that extra month of lake cleanup? I don't remember. Remember we went into September? Did we take that out of
It
occupancy?
probably was, I don't
Out of
recall
It
off
was
the top,
occupancy tax
yeah.
reserve.
I think it
I
was.
remember doing it. I didn't remember how we funded it. Okay.
So a question I have too, or a point, so in discussion, Dave McCoy had made note that this year, a lot of the work will be getting and obtaining permits. So obviously, the money probably won't be spent for another year. Does that need to be allocated for him to obtain those permits, or could we allocate that over a 2-year period and help?
You have to allocate the funds for the work to obtain the permits, but your point is well taken. Is
Okay.
that if they obtain the permits in 2024, they won't really be doing the work probably until 2025. So that additional expense won't be upfront, it will be heavily loaded.
In resolution, could we have that so it could be funded over a 2-year period is my point.
Well, the concept of this lake fund, excuse me, Kitty, if I can
I understand.
give the Pierre's explanation, is that this is a rolling fund. It's not intended to be a one-time shot, but it's intended to establish the fund, to be utilized and replenished in the future as the need, as the usage materializes. So a year from now, we'll be talking about, okay, what was used out of the lake fund in 2024? And do we need to replenish it? Do we need to increase it? Do we need to decrease it? What do we need to do? It's a new fund we've never had before. How'd I do, Kitty?
Good. I would just add on there that, yeah, that there's no mechanism as to how it would be refunded. It would have to be decided each year, like Pierre said, if it's going to be replenished or not. And then if it's going to be replenished, are you using fund balance? Is there a new revenue? Et cetera. The intent would be for it to be, kind of an assignment of fund balance so that it wouldn't just fall back to the general fund. It would, whatever unspent balance would remain there for this purpose.
Let me just toss out an idea. So with the additional revenue that we discussed of now $475,000, what I was thinking, as I was trying to sleep last night, was if we eliminate the reduction in the safety net of $250,000, we'd still have roughly $250,000 of additional revenue left over. I would suggest, instead of reducing the fund, or the lake fund by 500,000, we reduce it by 250,000.
Still generous, I think.
I said it was just,
Pierre, you're going the wrong way.
well,
I'm teasing.
Are you,
that,
I didn't,
that leaves the net result the same. We've covered the $1.9 million.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just a
so
thought.
so you were, in that thought, you were suggesting to keep in the reduction of safety net by 250, is that what you said,
No,
Matt?
no.
He wants to take it out.
Take out that reduction of safety net.
Yeah.
That's gonna take revenue,
Uh-huh,
some of the additional revenue, and take out half the reduction in the lake fund. That's gonna take out the other half of the additional revenue. Oh, wait a minute, that comes out of
No.
fund balance, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the lake.
Yeah. See where he was going. So for the record, am I adding that increase to EMS revenue
I would say yes.
to the list? Okay,
Yep.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that was
The 350,000?
350 for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so. Right?
I think so, yes, for the revenue, for the EMS revenue is good. We still have, Terry, and I'd like to add a little into the employee earnings savings, but with reservation.
So the intent here, those first two lines was you're reducing the amount of funding to the lake in half. So you're reducing the use of fund balance in half, but then that bottom line there, use of fund balance for the difference is just essentially saying you're not gonna use fund balance, $500,000 of fund balance for the lake, you're gonna use it for offsetting expenses.
That's
Yes.
correct,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
just,
Yep.
I told you it was when I was trying to sleep.
So that difference right now, what I'm, assuming, in the other item on here, just, the $800,000, so I know, Dan, you asked, about the interest on ARPA, and so what's already been committed are the interest earnings through the end of 2022. So based on what so I started taking a look at what we earned this year so far, and that's approximately about 450,000 through June. So it would be, reasonable that we would have $800,000 by the end of the year that we could utilize in the 2024 budget.
Are those funds or two questions. Last year, where did those funds go? And are they earmarked for anything, or are they, in this essence, just sitting and gonna be reinvested back, or are they going to
So,
fund
yeah,
balance?
so we've, the interest earnings through the end of 2022 have been included in the pot of funds for, reappropriating ARPA funds to projects. So as those projects are approved, then those interest earnings get, right now, so we have the ARPA funds invested in one fund. And, so as we spend down, we're just taking out of that investment account so next year, the earnings should be much less just because we'll have less funds
Sure.
in there because we're spending down.
So
on
a
the
question is if those, so we are getting near our time ending with ARPA timeline of expending the money. So, and I'm thinking if it was last year, we did the right thing. We added it back into ARPA funds because we could spend it. Adding that much into the ARPA funds now, it takes longer for those to come to fruition, and we may miss that deadline. So that's why I'm not so worried about using those funds
Yeah.
for something else now. Is that
Yeah, I
correct?
think it's a good opportunity, yeah.
I
And there's
just
no
want that
restriction.
justification to be
So that's
public,
ARPA,
so.
not APRA.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I was
That's my
tripping over
typo.
that last night. I'm going, am I not?
If we weren't under a time
Sorry.
constraint, I'd throw them back into ARPA account without hesitation, but
Thank you, sir.
we're gonna be timed
What's
out.
that acronym?
Let's use the 800,000.
Yeah.
So one thing I don't like is the obvious is it's not a recurring revenue that we will anticipate. It's almost in essence of just using a fund balance. And
Yes,
so that's not
yeah.
only reserve, but it is money that we have that can't offset, so.
Correct. And, safety net, mental hygiene law, those expenses are volatile. They can go up, they can go down.
Yep.
Other items in the budget can go up and down too.
As well as retirement expense.
Correct, yeah,
And our, everything's so volatile, so it is not a lack of, it doesn't give us a black eye, I suppose, using that. It's fiscal, so.
Right.
Sales, pitch,
Yep.
smoothly,
So I'm-
smooth, because Dave,
So am I adding the 800,000 to the list then,
like,
for the ARPA interest earnings?
we just spend it on good things.
I do, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
As far as what?
Any so,
Use them, utilize the ARPA funds.
Yeah.
David, Pierre?
Yep. I'm good with it.
general
Yes.
consensus is yes.
Okay.
Okay, now what about the lake?
Lake, I'm good, so coming in here today, I was in agreeance before Pierre had talked about the lake. I understand, I was questioning the lake, I understand that they want it to be a reoccurring expense, and I know that there are some really good projects that Dave McCoy did discuss. And I would like to see that, I was thinking 750,000 myself. It is a good start, and it gives them the ability to really pinpoint some programs and some projects, and we can see what happens. And if they utilize the money and they've done some good, it's a start, so.
Well, Dan, I've got a little bit different perspective on this. Look, this is a new program. The ask was for $1 million, excuse me. I think $500,000 this year is plenty. That's what I would fund it at. Then next year, if our sales tax comes in a little higher, you know, maybe we could take another $250,000 and fund it next year. But I think $500,000 for this new program is plenty. I would use that other $500,000 from the fund balance to offset some of these other things that we're doing as well.
And there's nothing to say that during next year, if there becomes a need for, let's say you did put 500 in and something comes up and there's a real need for 750 in total, you can appropriate fund balance at that time.
So, I'm nervous too, if we keep it at $1 million, that there is still not the need for them to come in and say, we need 500,000 more. So that's my point too, is I asked about the Jefferson project in specifics, because if we funded it $1 million and then halfway through the year, they say, well, we really want to fund the Jefferson project 800,000 this year, so now we're at 1.8 in extras, so that's
Did we get
what
an
I asked.
answer on the Jefferson project? I don't remember getting
I
an
don't
answer.
recall a
Really?
specific one, but, do you know where the Jefferson project stands?
There's going to be a report out, expected by the end of the month.
Are you aware of any extra ask for the Jefferson project for funds next year?
I'm not aware of any yet,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be surprised.
You know, and so that's my point, is the Jefferson project may be an ask already that we don't know yet.
You know, you do that quite well. You don't even smile when you say that. You know? Yet.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you, whatever you decide on for the lake, it's being funded by fund balance, and so it's just gonna, it's not gonna impact the reduction in the levy, it's just gonna impact how much of fund balance is being used. We have a very healthy fund balance, and
Right, and if we
Snack.
overestimate our vacancies, we could use extra fund balance.
Like Jimmy Griffin.
Lake guys,
Lake guys? I'm a lake guy.
Live on a lake.
what's your number?
500.
499,
500's fine.
555. David?
5.
No, 500's fine. If we need more, we'll just give it out.
I could go lower if we need.
It seems if we had to take a vote, it would be 500, so.
I could go, give them 250 if we had to.
With the expectation that realistically, we probably are gonna spend more than that. It's just a matter of designation right now, because I think we're all aware that there's gonna be some more asks.
And I think the asks are gonna come from outside of the Chautauqua Lake,
Oh, yeah.
and that,
I think so.
just
Understood.
observation.
Yeah, so if, and even, you know, I don't wanna take any steam out of Dave McCoy's, list. He can certainly continue to track down that list and come to the legislature as he says, look, this didn't make that list, and I'd like to add the funding, and so how are we gonna do that, so.
That's not good.
And to Kitty's point, we take it out of fund balance now, or we take it out of fund balance next year, when the need is presented?
Yeah.
So,
You remember the year all the fish died?
Yeah.
Remember all the carp died, and we had to skim all the dead fish off the lake?
yeah.
500, we're,
Okay. So, what do we have to take, 400,000 out of
Yeah,
fund
about what we
balance?
need. Then again, I'm not opposed to using fund balance either, so some of it.
So 400,000 guys out of fund balance?
Approximately, yes.
so I guess the question we could ask is if the serial bond question, or do we want to continue to utilize the extra fund balance for those capital purchases, or consider bonding? What's the general consensus on that?
I think if we needed more money, we would want a bond. I think the amount we're looking for to close the gap is much smaller. Fund balance, I would leave it, that's me, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't, the bonding, I don't think that's a bad idea. It's sort of a business decision that makes sense. I don't think it's out of, you know,
Also, bonding this year.
Yeah, my concern with the fund balance is that the tentative budget was taking 5.6 million out of the fund balance, which is a pretty substantial whack. And as I said during the committee meetings, we've become accustomed over the last couple of years of our fund balance growing each year by a budget surplus. The Finance Department now indicates that they don't expect any surplus this year. So they don't expect the fund balance to grow this year. And with the tax cap that the state has placed on us, with inflation going at 7%, and projected to be almost 7% next year, we're gonna be tapping fund balance again beyond 24.
Does it make sense to buy?
So I'm just concerned about reaching too deeply into fund balance in this budget. So we have an opportunity to bond and reduce the draw from fund balance by $1 million. I think it's a prudent thing to do. Not that it's necessary for the 2024, but I think with the trend that we're on, I think it'd be prudent to do that.
I think it's a good decision that's not absolutely necessary, but like you said, and realize, at the end of the day, the fund balance is there. I guess I gotta be careful what I'm saying. For the taking, I mean, the fund balance is there.
It's not a slush fund.
The reason the fund balance is there is if we need the funds, it's there.
If there's an emergency.
Right.
If the state suddenly gives us a bill for $7 million or whatever it was several years ago, unexpected,
Right. We can cover it,
we can cover it.
yeah.
Which we did discover, there's some things in mental health that they have yet to bill us for, that we could get that bill at any point in time.
Exactly.
There is holes, and that's our worry. And I will say, just looking at the capital projects, or the use of fund balance, so capital projects this year, we have some. Realistically, we're gonna have the same capital project list next year of some use of fund balance.
Or
And then-
perhaps more,
or
because
more.
the ARPA funds that were used for capital expenditures over the last couple of years, that's gonna start, the need is gonna start ramping up.
Sure. And then, we're using a one-time fund balance for CSEA one-time bonuses. That'll fall off. The general fund operating expense for the lake, the proposition is that will maintain, hopefully, but not to the amount, but that amount is undetermined. I wouldn't be surprised if it was $1 million next year. And the designation of the helicopter, how many more years is that gonna be on there? You think it's close, right?
It's maybe
is it-
2.
I was gonna say, I think it's.
I
think
kind of
it's-
recalled too, so that'll be falling off
Don't-
hopefully in a couple of
But
years.
that was when we sold the helicopters, that we reserved the proceeds to pay off the debt, so,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So,
And Dan, during the course of the year, we don't take the use of fund balance lightly. I mean, my experience, we try to exhaust every other avenue, option before we go into the fund balance, so.
if
I
those
would-
options
I would rather have
exist.
more fund balance
Yeah.
there for our use than
That makes sense.
not.
But Bob, just to,
See what respect.
just to expand on that, and you've been here longer than I have, but when I came on this legislature, the fund balance was about to go negative.
Yes.
And we've worked hard over the last 10 years, not to just protect the fund balance, but to increase it to a level that was reasonable. We've been successful at that. We've had some very good news over the last couple of years. Good news doesn't always continue year after year after year. And
Right.
I think we've seen the trend turn in
They've turned me
2023.
off. No, I turned
And I
myself
think
off.
that we can expect
Thanks.
that the good news is probably not gonna return for a couple of years. So that's why I'm concerned about about maintaining, or not maintaining the level of the fund balance, but not decreasing it too substantially.
And I've been on, Terry and I in particular, a couple times, have been on the no side of using fund balance. Terry?
More than once.
More than one. So I get it.
So-
And that's also helps for my support of maintaining the fund balance and bonding the equipment, so.
Yeah, Pierre, I think our first year here, the fund balance was 4.8%. It was less than the 5% that the legislature has suggested. So the fund balance has increased a lot, 13.6, I guess, next year for 2024. That's a tremendous increase from where we started. I like the idea of bonding, especially for equipment in public facilities. I think we've done that before, so I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do it at this time.
And if I may make a comment, based on our conversation, the reason we are so protective over the fund balance is, I feel that we've made such a prudent and conservative budget that we feel that we're very correct. So we may need to use fund balance if some of our projections don't come to fruition. And so we want that little bit of a buffer, if you will, because we've felt that we've done the best that we could with the budget, and it's that close. So we should feel that way every year, and but certainly do feel that this year. David, do you have a?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we've had, like Pierre is saying, we've worked hard to get that budget, the fund balance where it's at. And we've always bonded for equipment. I don't see this as any different going back a few years. Why not? And I know we're actually, when you say we're conservative, we're actually many times chastised for being too conservative. But being too conservative has got us where we are today, and that's a good spot. So I think the bonding's a good deal.
We're all in agreement.
So how much?
How much were the,
Well,
What's the
I
request?
know we got an amount, the 4 trucks.
yeah, I mean, the heavy equipment
Yeah.
budget was $1 million.
Okay.
And so the idea was proposed that we fund that heavy equipment
Okay.
with serial bonds. I'll just add in there too, a year from now, if some, change in circumstances, we don't want to issue bonds and we get an influx of cash somehow or whatever.
Sales tax.
You don't have to bond, but if you put it in there, that's assuming that we will issue the serial bonds and we'll proceed that way unless, something changes,
Would we have to be
with interest
specific?
rates, with, available cash,
Do we have
we,
to be specific as to which,
no.
Does the
You-
company buy
no,
lotto
we'll
tickets?
just, no.
we can
it-
just cut out
Okay,
$1 million?
Kid said, no, we don't buy lotto
For
tickets.
So, yeah, you would, just like the amendment would be to,
'Cause there's nothing here that adds up to $1 million.
reduce the use of appropriated fund balance and replace with, fund the heavy equipment with serial bonds.
Okay, and that's
So-
why I wanted to make sure that amount is whatever we can do that amendment for.
Yeah, we would be amending Exhibit E,
Okay.
and we'll write that in the resolve clause in the resolution that, Exhibit E is amended to, reduce the amount of fund balance for project, number 626.
Kitty just read it off. Would anyone want to make that amendment? We'll have to circle back to that.
But, yeah, at the end of today, you know, Jennifer and I will prepare the resolution that you can
Okay.
use to pre-file.
Yes.
I think we can add that in.
Yeah, I think it's,
Where do we stand?
As far as the tax.
Yeah. What's our running deficit, if we have one?
It's all covered.
Okay. So nothing.
And the tax levy's the same,
Correct.
Yes,
And our use of fund balance has gone down.
going
Yes.
down $1 million.
What are we missing?
1.1-ish.
that's the golden question.
There's always,
that looks good to me.
yeah.
Would it,
I'm happy.
Oh, there,
So the
that's better.
reduction, is, yeah, 1.1 anyway.
Would it be wrong to
Did
bond
we,
them?
were there any other,
1.4? Yeah, well, we don't have to designate.
The only thing that we didn't do was safety.
Mr. Chairman, I think that,
they don't wanna do.
looking at the big picture, from the tentative budget that we were presented, that had the tax levy right at the tax cap. Through the committee review process, we identified a net increase in expenses of nearly $2 million. And through our actions to find additional revenues and additional reduction in expenses, we've been able to keep the levy under the tax cap.
Yep.
So that's a pretty impressive accomplishment to be able to cover $2 million of additional net expenses
Yes.
with finding other opportunities to cover it. So I think in the big picture, it's pretty impressive accomplishment.
And I'll add on to that is, you know, as the budget was presented by the county executive, new information became available since
Yes.
that time, and directly affected that it was a medical and payment of $1 million. The others were holes that the committees identified that they felt needed to be filled. So in total, it's a $2 million addition. And I agree, could say that we did find that $2 million reduction through various sources of cutting and bonding and finding revenue to help cover. So I think you could say that we did, in fact, by keeping the budget as the county executive presented, we did reduce it $2 million. So,
Based on all the different options.
And I will say that coming into these budget hearings, I was not at all confident that we'd be able to stay under the tax cap, because I foresaw some of these additional expenses. So I'm really pleased that we were able to stay under the tax cap, and I'm not at all disappointed that we weren't able to reduce the tax levy, because I thought that was an unrealistic expectation that some people had. The other thing I would like to point out is that I had concerns about the tentative budget projecting an increase in sales tax revenue next year. But Kitty gave me some good news this morning that now I'd like her to share, that relieved a lot of my concerns about the sales tax revenue.
We did receive a healthy sales tax payment today, so I have much better confidence in our projection, so.
How much over was it?
How healthy
Yeah, how healthy was it?
Well, we're currently trending 6.2% over last year's actual, and we had budgeted 6.2% increase for next year. So
Now, was this for the second quarter or third quarter, Kitty,
It's
of
almost
this year?
suspicious, really.
The sales tax
How can it be
payment,
that good?
Yeah.
That's through this week, this first week of October.
first week of October. Very
The,
good.
the payment that we receive the first week of October every year is our largest payment of the year, so it's always a telling.
But it's up significantly.
We are trending year-to-date 6.2% over last year's year-to-date
Good.
through October.
Do we have any other comments, questions, concerns?
Just wanted to also remind you of the, for the retirement adjustments, we'll need to make those to the other funds as well. So we would add that, I think we had a tally of that on the other. So just as a reminder, you know, there was other amendments we'll add into the overall resolution that affect, you know, the changes that were made to the South and Center sewer district yesterday, as well as those highlighted adjustments for the retirement, projected increased retirement costs for the other enterprise funds.
And those total approximately 52,000.
But no effect on the levy.
Correct.
No.
Correct, since they're enterprise funds.
I'm not seeing any other comments or questions. What I would recommend is that we just take a break, a few minutes. Give the ladies some time to take a break and also to make some amendments.
Okay.
When we come back, how long do you need?
15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, at least,
I mean, so-
20 minutes, yeah.
Okay, so if we come back in 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, that'll be
So let's
good,
take a
yep.
break. Stretch our legs a minute. When we can reconvene, we can make some amendments if ready, or we can lollygag around a little longer, or reconvene at a different date. So whatever we determine, we'll make that call in 20 minutes, so.
We'll update the spreadsheet so that you can see all the amendments on one page, and
Okay.
then you can, you know, approve that, and then later today, we'll put it in resolution format so that it can be used for pre-file.
Okay, sounds good.
And if you're reflecting the increase in appropriations for personnel services for South and Center, you also have an offsetting increase in revenue that you need to reflect as well.
Yes, that's actually right here. That's
Great.
listed on here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, we'll
So
break.
that increase you gave him, you just more than took it away with the retirement.
Just barely.
Good job, Dan. Good job, sir.
Yeah.
reconvene. And it is my understanding, unless anyone else has any more additions or suggestions, we're all set.
I believe we are now.
I believe we have some amendments that we need to make.
Yes, we do. I've put a copy of all of your proposed amendments in front of you. I'm not sure, must be, maybe that TV's shut off, I'm not positive, hold on. Oh, thanks, Olivia.
Thank you.
Okay. And in a moment, it will be up on both screens. Thanks.
This is the only screen that really matters. Sorry, Katie. I didn't mean to
There
say
we
that.
go.
So the first column has the total amendments for all funds mixed together. The right column has your general fund adjustments only. That applies to the 1.9 million and added appropriation totals that we needed to adjust.
I would just, as you're reviewing the document, do you want to just make sure we didn't miss anything, but, or if you have any questions on what those line items are for.
Okay, folks, so then the tax rate, I guess I don't see it on here, remains the same,
Yeah.
691 or?
Right.
Okay,
This form is just for
The amendments.
budget amendments, yes.
Okay.
It doesn't show anything with the levy or the rate on it.
okay, so the net effect is?
Is flat.
Neutral?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Jen, where's the increase to South and Center salary? You have the benefits,
Oh, we do?
and you have the revenue, but you don't have the salary.
This is just the retirement part.
Yeah.
So she'll have
to Yep.
insert those.
Yep, I will insert that right now.
I wanted to mention it because I forgot to earlier. The only other area I was concerned about going into after the review process was the fuel budget.
I was
And,
just gonna say that, Dan.
yeah.
I was just gonna say that.
So, I know that we have a potential increase there, but it's so unknown, and I'm not too afraid of what that over might be, if at all. So myself, I was okay with that, but I just wanted to mention it. Bob, if you wanted to say anything, maybe you have a different feeling.
No, it's easy to say, who knows what's gonna happen. I guess we've all been around the block enough to know that going up is never a surprise on anything. Going down is a well-received news. I don't know. I guess Sam felt confident that it might equal out or go down after the first of the year. And then we've got all of 2024 for it to change. What's that?
Even out?
Even out, yeah, so,
But
but
Dan,
we're prepared for it also.
In previous years, I was always questioning their projections for fuel and electricity and water and all those utilities. But 2 years ago, Drew developed some models, and I was willing to see how those went. And last year and this year, his models have proved out to be very accurate. So I didn't question their projections for next year, because I think that they're now using models that are a lot more accurate than in the past, when they would just say, okay, what's the current price of gas? That's what we're gonna budget for next year. What?
Right, right. And we are in a period where it has gone a lot lower than it is now. recently. So, well, knowing that from Pierre, I guess I feel better about the fuel prices.
Yeah. Would
Leaving them
would
where
he
they're
say it's 311 currently, but it possibly could go to 350?
No, so he has budgeted 311, currently it was 373.
That was 358.
Diesel.
Diesel was
For
358.
diesel, yeah,
Okay.
which we use, mostly.
80/20.
Okay. Well, it's a variable.
Right. Well, if they've, like Pierre said, they've got a model, they've got history.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we had that conversation around that particular item again, and that we've discussed it and are okay with plus or minus next budget season.
No problem.
I'm good.
So what's our, does anyone else see any other additions, modifications to what they've presented us? Otherwise, how do we want to phrase and format a amendment? Can we do a one lump sum as presented, or should we do it individually? I'm not, just looking for some suggestions.
Yeah, I mean, you are, I don't know, Olivia, if you have any other recommendations, but I would just recommend maybe you could propose approving the amendments as laid on the desk with no net change to the tax levy in the tentative budget.
No, understood.
with-
It's- So there's a lot of changes, so.
And then with that addition of the .1 changes to the South and Center Sewer District, because that was not copied over onto that list that I initially left for you, so.
Do I have to enter this into evidence or anything?
Yeah. I mean, essentially, it'll be the resolution that's pre-filed.
Okay.
So your names will be on the resolution.
Yeah, and Jen does send this to me, so it's in the minutes also.
Okay.
So I have it.
Okay.
Can we just print this off? And then we're not, it's just what we have?
It's what you have plus the one that Pierre had caught that wasn't copied over. So there's one more in addition to those. It's not a fund
How hard is
balance
it to
one.
print it with that?
It's
Yes,
not-
you can reprint it
I mean,
right now.
it just saves, oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Take a
fine.
second.
no, you know what I mean? Then we're voting on what we have, not on what we have plus something else.
Yeah, we
That's
want to be
fine.
accurate,
I'm
and that's
just
why
being,
No, that makes sense.
it helps my brain.
Wow, can't type.
I'll even go get them.
she's still tied into the sheriff's office printer, so go.
No, I'm not.
Where am I going? Sheriff's office?
Yes, yeah, just the legislature. Thank you, legislative office.
Can you put in your
No, I just emailed it to Christie,
okay.
so.
Gas is 80 cents cheaper in Florida. 80 cents. That's crazy.
I could never live in Florida.
I did look for diesel, unfortunately.
You know, that's funny because now when they talk about the national average price for gas, we're not that far off.
Right, right.
Just California's way out of sight.
$7 a gallon. Yeah, yeah. California's been bad.
On the higher end when it comes to national fuel prices, and for us to be in the middle, we're closer to it.
I have to think when I get down to my
Yeah,
office.
no.
I hate having to write those sometimes.
I think so.
A lot of changes. Still keeping the tax levy. Until that Wednesday night, I think. Give it back. She's still here. Yes. And then she got released shortly after. Yeah. The other thing too, I guess, is, she just told me, she could have called back to somebody's attention.
Well, no, but they'll have to figure something out.
So there, you know, I already know a problem.
Well, unless they can reduce the things, or use generic things or something else.
And I was talking to,
He's reskilling the people on the program, so.
but a lot of the,
I know.
a lot of the drugs that they have to purchase are highly inflated on the county.
Yeah, it's
You know, like, you'll see UIB, their script for insurance for $30. Hey, it's $300. You know, they just inflate everything. And
Can't we get them on the contract?
they can't substitute. So if you're using a specific drug, you have to have that specific drug.
The other option, like he said, is you transport the inmate continuously.
Then what about the ones who did
Or smuggling it, or, and then you have to issue, you know, people, hey, you do that.
Well, I think when they get, when they're about to for the assisted treatment, or assisted, they're being watched. They can't, you know, that's monitored.
There's no way we can work out something with, Cat County or Allegheny County or something.
I don't know, that's something, and that's what we have to ask. You know, because it's,
Take people to Buffalo every day or all the time.
I'm not sure if that's what exactly happens, is it?
they have to transport the family to the county district for a lot of stuff. So,
It's a shot once a month. It's a one-time shot for a month.
for all of them.
For some of them, maybe, maybe not all of them.
Because I have a son.
Some of them have different programs.
Meds and addiction, and he substitutes for him with Suboxone, which is still an opiate.
Sure.
It's an opiate predicate.
That means you wean it off.
How often does it take that?
They
Every
say
day?
he's daily.
Yeah, that's what I'm
He took 4 years. And he says, now he's looking for disability. 100% disability. He's only worked 25 years in his life. He's, you know, just in this country.
At least he's taking, you know, he's taking the steps. You know, that's the important part. I get it.
Encourage him to do what he needs to do. He's wanted to move closer and job or business. I couldn't hire him.
Put him in job with the county.
We're fighting.
He would have
But do
work
it
half of it. No, he's-
Do it halfway through the year, because we need to see. He's smart.
Vacancy.
Yeah.
I think we catch something there, but.
I do too, Dan. I do too. I don't know.
And we talked about 45, would be 375, we would take it for.
That's where I'm like, well, so I was happy it's taken. Because I think that sends two or three people
$375, so reasonable.
It won't be in a, like a, it's not, cause we're not, we decreasing the, it's gonna be in the, the resolve clauses in the language, and it's not a budgetary account in that respect, so.
And I don't
These
think
are
us
just
by
the entries that will be
utilizing those
budget
unspent
amendments,
funds
and then
at
there's
this time
further
is not by any
amendments
means
that'll be in the
promoting that
resolve
we don't wanna
clauses
hire
that
those
talk
positions.
about the
And I get that, but. Yeah,
Because
so-
the money
because we
has
wanna-
not been transferred
and
to
that's what
each
I told
fund
every one of them,
since the
is I
budget
want you to
has
build
not
a
been
position
approved
to
yet.
this.
Oh,
So there's
you know
no-
what, no, we do have to, we have to reduce, we have to
They're in the
reduce
budget.
the transfer to,
Some
yeah,
point
you're
we
right,
approve
we
Reduce
have
the
to make
tran-
another amendment.
Oh, yeah,
We have to
yeah, the
reduce
transfer,
the, reduce the transfer to capital.
Another one?
Yeah,
What'd you find?
They didn't, they're reflecting the use of $1 million in capital,
For the,
funds for the capital for bonding.
I'm just gonna-
Not further reduction
doesn't
in
matter
use
which
of
one.
fund
No.
balance.
It's
not in here.
it isn't on there.
Not in here.
It doesn't change the total or anything.
No, it
it's
doesn't
just-
change the
it's just- So,
But it-
so
but it
you
should be
would,
in here, though.
It's gonna be a decrease appropriations.
Good catch, Pierre.
Sorry, Bob, another change coming. John D'Angelo stopped me in the hall and he said, I'm doing the work at his.
Okay.
Did they,
You get that all in.
See, they're filling a vacancy.
did they
John was
file a
on
complaint?
vacation.
It doesn't matter.
Next, like
They filed
99.50.
Grievance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, $899.50 point nine.
It's three something.
Point
Or
nine.
I think nine. Now, I heard through the grapevine, they brought it down to seven.
Yeah, that's not
Still ridiculous.
cereal.
Was that $7 per 1,000 gallons?
It was, yeah, per however, yeah, it must be 1,000.
Because I just ran the numbers for South and Center last night.
And then go down to the.
We got it here by
$2.5.
Decrease these.
Oh,
I told the guys that we had been doing country
You can just say
care.
purchase price and,
it drives me.
country cow.
They're strictly.
You guys buy into them?
Every Friday.
Like the inside.
How many guys?
Cheaper to take that tanker over there. To pump it in the tanker or take it to the south. I mean, it.
How's the new one?
House has been good.
Good.
Dunkirk's cost can't be that bad. Well, take it to Westfield. Westfield's cost.
Lower the
Filling up the bars.
Trucking it. Boy,
I'm
that's
sorry about this. I had talked to her.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to find.
No, I'm not worried about it. My wife says, she's a little razzled, and I said, well, I agree, we're moving, and I'm not getting held up by it. Because we had, I had 15 people looking at me to get over here, and keep moving, and I said, we're going, and I'm waiting for her. She had already whittled through various things.
Okay.
Even if you had to pile the stuff outside for an hour or two, if we would have.
And they're only 4%.
Oh, you know, I'm happy, no, we're good. My address has been.
That'd be a windfall for them.
And it still is, because you know what? So, the post office, right, I said, they can't recognize that as an address
I mean,
until
the
they
right
change
thing
it.
to do.
Even my forward, right, they couldn't have my forward. I said, you're the post office. So
Right. I mean,
they made
I
my
can see it a little
forward
bit.
wrong, okay? And then I asked them all the time.
Would you
I got
think the
involved
post
in
office
one of these
would
couple years
go
ago.
by what
The North
11
Chautauqua
emergency
Sewer
people say?
District, part of their district.
You think they should get that
distributed
update, and that should
Chautauqua
automatically
District.
change, but it doesn't. It takes an
And they
act
built
of
a
God.
treatment plant.
But my
So
road,
to
one
raise
end
their
says
rate a
Abbey
whole
Hill Road,
bunch.
and one says Abbey
Scott was
Road.
crying on my
The
shoulder.
town had, I said,
Give me the figures.
Oh, gee.
oh, yeah.
Something
So
doesn't
how
smell
the
right.
maps
Let's
is
go down and
Abbey
take
Hill
it.
Road.
They had a
So it's crazy,
Gauge
so
that
I
they're
get
using
it,
to measure
so
the flow.
it's been challenging with the address, but.
highly inaccurate.
No,
Hell yeah.
I have a lot of projects to do and complete, but, the
We
kids
called a
are all
meeting with
happy
their
with the places.
plan
that I have.
operator and their attorney. I'm explaining everything.
We have some furniture should
He looks at
actually
me
be
and goes,
coming into the end of this month.
How do you know this
This
stuff
week,
when
maybe
our
next
plant
week.
operator doesn't know this stuff?
It's in the,
And then the plant operator,
No,
oh, I
where
thought
the-
there was a problem there.
the-
Yeah, I thought there was a problem. Yeah.
It's okay. And then,
Guess what? They didn't raise the rate.
2% occupancy, it's the same account, we use the 80/20 WTRS.
Right.
Greater never
Did they actually put it in their budget?
determined, because
Yeah.
they said, or she didn't relay it. They said, you could put, hey, here we told them.
If you look on the local share spreadsheet, you'll see that has.
Yeah.
She was running to buy the attorney.
Oh,
Well, the, yeah, then the attorney, they told the attorney that was okay, but if they
See, I know. I actually did the house in West.
just, I didn't,
No, we put it in. She put it in when PD decided she would.
Yeah.
And we sent that email today, remember, he said, thanks, I'll take
She
care
sold
of
a lot of
it.
houses.
Exactly.
But I've had dealings with her, and she just is very difficult.
Did we send the other change over or not?
Oh, this Randy.
What are we doing?
We're finalizing it, yeah.
She had the listing that Dan had. I worked with Dan, but
Do we
Randy.
need, they assume we need all this.
Actually,
no,
listing.
no.
Oh,
I know,
She-
because I sold her.
she didn't.
a
That's
house
weird.
in Westville 10 years ago. And,
If it- can I-
She's okay, but.
Here, did you hear that the conservative
I'll
didn't?
I'll send it to myself. No, I'll do it.
I've heard that. She called me though before I went to Florida and I bought an ad and,
You know.
yeah, I bought an ad. I've heard that. Yeah.
Thank
I'll
you
call
so
Nicole.
much.
I'll
I'm
call Nicole.
Take care of the work, been in touch.
There's Mr. Abel. Here we go.
That you didn't have it right. Or did you?
You hit a listing, but I sold less. You think you give me sucker snow?
It's all, it's so easy to go to.
Should've decreased it
Well,
by
why didn't they just
percentage
do that?
point.
No, you didn't do it right next to it.
And I'm talking the newspaper.
Yes, exactly. With dogs, that's they're drinking down there.
I wouldn't listen with them when you go to Summers. I wouldn't listen with them.
Oh my God, that's not.
No.
You
Mistake.
I want you to listen, it's gonna go for a big, they never, big time. Joe
We'll get it.
doesn't care. Well, house down the street sold for $6.
No, and actually,
house
it's
is
gonna be
twice
happy
that.
seeing the rate go down.
Yes.
That's all it-
Exactly.
We're looking 800,000-900,000.
740, something like that. How'd I get you bucks on?
That's,
We'll give you a rate,
sort of.
just got on the rate too.
Paid 118,000.
I didn't do this, John.
I mean,
We'll do something for you.
and with the paper,
I buried my
No, you
work
didn't,
all
because you
summer
didn't have,
to pay for
you
it.
didn't have the listing. He's got the listing.
never spoils it.
Do we have our paper?
It's coming.
She was having some technical difficulties.
Yep, I
with it.
figured, yeah,
We
I
figured out,
figured out how
she's
to
losing her
solve
column, her numbers.
It's staff, high school and college.
I was gonna help her, but I'm not computer savvy at all, so.
You guys are gonna make a file a grievance in IT for doing this inter-mail transfer.
Is it CSA job? Is it CSA?
Yeah, there's an inter-fund transfer leader in this card that walks around.
Yeah.
There is a leader in the card that walks around.
Yeah,
It's a cleaning.
if he says, I
Is that right?
believe that,
Oh, yes, yes.
There is.
There's a mail.
There's an
inter-mail
So
stuff.
I'll read it. There's a.
and I won't lie to you, sometimes I say it better.
Yeah, exactly.
Used to cover
Thanks for cleaning it up.
Once
It's not more intelligent.
Just pick up mail and.
That is what I said.
Departments.
At least that was my intention.
They would never, he's not gonna, I'm gonna find out what's going on.
College, they did have him,
I had respect, I know that.
another friend of mine.
He's not running the show either.
Write and review
You know
my
he's not.
my resume. Before I
Well,
left
I asked him
college.
right from the
Because
year,
Talk to
we
me.
get him out of
Yeah.
permit.
can't make myself sound
You
like Paul,
appreciate
and then I'd read what they wrote.
I really don't care.
I would never come up with
Yeah,
that.
that's fantastic.
So we're all back live, and in front of each of us, there's a proposed amendments to the 2024 budget sheet that has also been provided to the clerk of the legislature with such amendments. So if anyone would wish to obtain that proposed amendment list, they could reach to the clerk, the clerk of the legislature's office to receive that. But if everyone wants to take a minute to review it for any additional corrections, or if they don't see any, at any point, we would entertain a motion to amend.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to amend, taking into consideration these increases or decreases in appropriation accounts and corresponding increases or decreases in revenue accounts as outlined by the Finance Department.
And a second.
I'll second that amendment.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Any further discussion today by anyone? Comments?
Dan, I'd just like to thank you for your leadership on this. Pierre, your suggestions as far as bonding, I think was very good. And thank the Finance Department, Jen, Kitty, Steve, and Blake for all the work that they did, as well as the rest of the committee. I've been involved in these budget hearings, for a number of years, and I have to say this is one of the most productive hearings I think I've been involved with. So thank you, and thank everybody that's been involved.
Agreed. I thank you, Terry, and I do appreciate the work that all the county employees have done in total from finance and budget, and also all of the department heads for their presentations throughout this week. And it's been a good process, so. Any other comments? Entertain a motion to, Kitty, please.
We appreciate the collaboration.
Very much.
You're welcome.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good work, team.
Nice job.